Good morning, everybody. It's a real privilege and honour to be here. I've actually got 12 minutes to give you an understanding of the seismic shifts going on in the world of people, all of us out there in the what's now called the social media space. So, how are we thriving and how to thrive in the collaborative age? In the 30s, Alfred Sloan invented essentially the form of the modern business, how to manage vast numbers of business units efficiently within a hierarchy. It was the time of the beginnings of a real understanding of what's now called command and control management. He invented things like the line manager, which I'm sure most of you have experienced, KPIs, output measurements, etc., to keep people managed. But it was also the time of the invention of, or the perfection of, authoritarian marketing, telling consumers what to buy next, making sure they go up the ladder of your brands, and even the idea of planning obsolescence, forcing people to buy again in 5, 7, 8 years. Now, this is all premised upon an understanding of us all here as cogs. Cogs in the cycle of produce and consume. Very simple understanding of human nature. And it's based upon Homo economicus, the understanding of us as economic units, self-interested, putting ourselves and our interests first. This is essentially what the last 100 years of business has primarily been about. Now, of course, people don't like that very much. People don't like to be put into a little box. And it's actually the birth of the union movement, again, in the 30s in GM. It's the first ever sit-in in one of the GM factories. And in fact, GM's history has actually been as much about cars as it has about relations between the unions and the company. And it's not surprising that it's having troubles now. I'm going to introduce you to a very important law, pioneered by a cybernetics expert and psychiatrist, interestingly, called Ashby Ross. It's the law of requisite variety. It's a really important thing to understand. And basically it says is, in an environment where there's minimal variety, i.e. we're all cogs doing what we're told, an organism to thrive in that environment need have the same level of variety, i.e. very little variety. But if you live in an environment where there's massive variety, an organism, i.e. a company or organization, must reflect the nature and structure of the outside environment. Now, what's happening now is we are moving from a world of monolithic media, where the BBC essentially tells us what to believe, the whole imagined communities that we had in the 50s, to myriadic media. This is just a fraction of some of the social media that's out there at the moment. People talking and sharing and finding each other and connecting and having ideas and complaining in a massive hubbub of noise. So essentially what I'm here to say is we've got to move from an understanding of the world as mechanistic. You already heard this from a couple of the speakers. Cause and effect, linear, put in this input, investment, out the other end will come out some kind of something we can measure at the end of it, to a much more networked understanding of the world. And this is a really big challenge for all of us to engage in. Because essentially the world has been rewired by the web. I really mean this very clearly. The way, particularly the younger cohort, think about the world is significantly different from the way we do. We've been rewired. Here's a few stats, just to sort of give you a little sprinkle. There are now 1 billion tweets a month being tweeted, but a trending topic only lasts 5 to 10 minutes on average. Things come up, things die, things come up, things die. There are 350 million people on Facebook, and half of them go on every single day. There are 1 billion videos served by YouTube every day, which means every person on YouTube is watching roughly, they say, 187 a month of videos, short-form videos. And in case you think it's all about 17-year-olds, the average Twitter user is 39, the average Facebook user is 38, and over 80% of all social media sites are dominated by women. So I'm going to look up here what I'm doing. So basically what's happening is power is shifting to us, to people. And it's shifting virtuously. As we see what power we have, we're realizing that we have more power. It's called the network effect. It happens with faxes, but it also happens with people. We are realizing that we are powerful. And as power shifts, hierarchies are subverted. So we've now got peer-powered media. This was the plane going into the Hudson. People saw it on Twitter before CNN had a whiff of it. This is the Iranian revolution, but you might as well look in the Obama campaign. People are now driving politics from the grassroots level. You've got peer-powered science, massive arguments about what is legitimate science, because people like ourselves can all contribute to websites and projects that are developing knowledge that used to be kept for just the professionals to say, yes, this is science. You've got peer-powered creativity happening. People taking IP that you've made, remixing it, and creating something different. And you've got peer-powered consumption. This is Kevin Smith, an actor and director and filmmaker. This is him on a Southwest Airlines plane a few weeks ago, having just been told that he was too fat to fly. This is him in the airplane, and he just tweeted in that moment saying, "I know I'm fat, but was I really needed to be kicked off the plane?" Next thing you know, that night, ABC, CNN, worldwide, this is on the news, worldwide, in one day, forcing the VP to come back on Twitter and create some kind of response, but there's pressure on business to respond in the way that the people are now using and talking about media. Now, this is actually not a new thing. This is from a manifesto I signed when I first started my own consultancy in the late 90s, called the Clute Manifesto, saying powerful conversations are starting, as we obviously now know. As a direct result, markets are getting smarter and getting smarter than most companies. Very interesting thought. So this could be a crisis, but as we know in the Chinese language, crisis actually means danger, clear danger for all of us, that we have to respond so quickly and so urgently, but there's also an opportunity. And these are some of the characteristics, strategic directions that companies that win in this collaborative age seem to show. They empower the edges. So Craigslist, Amazon, Google, it's all about empowering the people who didn't used to have power, people on the fringes. It's about dissolving boundaries, so you've got open innovation, open IP, this kind of stuff. It's about co-creating the unthinkable with your peers. So then I've got things like NASA trying to get us to contribute to what's happening on Mars, what's happening on the moon, the £30 million prize to see who can send a robot to the moon by Google. And these are all things that are unthinkable when there's one organization doing it. It's about using the long tail, which I'm sure many of you heard about. Using niche markets, finding those people who've got five people who've got real interest in something and serving them, using the internet. About redesigning business models. This is actually Google's Mechanical Turk, which takes the community and gives them very, very simple human tasks to do, and thus creates major impact for organizations that use it. It's about using petabyte intelligence. This is the amount of data that's being created every day. 1 petabyte, and it's going to be 2, then 3. It's about being able to see, as Google did recently, outbreaks of mumps occurring, or the flu, before anyone else has seen them, just by analyzing vast amounts of data. It's about augmented reality, which is I'm sure some of you have seen about, where your actions with your iPhone or your computer and what you're seeing start to interact with the data and everyone else's contributions. And a big thought process in this area is about taking the web to the world. The last 10 years has been all about the web, it's all on the web. And now you're seeing people go, hold on a minute, we live in real lives. Take the web to the world. This is Google Earth using its technology to help a tribe in the Amazon protect their boundaries of forest from loggers. But the area I work most in is actually in culture. This is some really interesting research came out last year from the Judge Institute and in the Journal of Marketing. 4,000 firms researched over 27 countries, and cultural traits are the most important drivers for innovation. Processes is important, but process is not as important as the cultural traits an organization shows. So I'm going to show you 10 traits that I think are vital for an organization to survive, possibly even thrive, in an age where we are talking and sharing and consuming and discussing and debating. The first one is to nurture our collaborative natures. Science has now proven in the last 2 or 3 years that we're not selfish, we're actually inherently collaborative. But most organizations treat us like we're not. So actually it's about working out how to nurture the collaborative instincts of your people and the people outside your business. It's about being radically open. If you want open innovation, which is something I work in, then you also have to be radically open about some of the problems that come up, some of the issues that come up in a collaborative partnership. You have to be able to talk about the frustrations and the anger and the angst, rather than trying to manage it away in a professional hierarchy. It's about embracing ambiguity. If you've got people outside your business contributing ideas to you, you've got suppliers working with you as partners, design companies working with you as partners, you're going to have to understand that you're going to go through periods, or often long periods of ambiguity, when you're not going to know what's going to come out and you can't predict and control it. And this is a skill that most people in Britain find it very hard to develop, in my experience. It's also about working out how to let things emerge. Part of that is letting things emerge over time. You've got all these different people coming together, not in one team that can be controlled, but they're coming together often voluntarily. And things emerge over time, and it takes patience and experimentation. It's about heeding intuition. You cannot process and analyze all the past data before you need to make a choice. You cannot do it anymore. There's too much information, there's too much going on, there's too much complexity. You're going to have to start heeding your intuition, your intelligent intuition. Over a period of time, you've perfected it, and you go, you know what, I can't prove it, we're going to have to do this, and we're going to have to work it out and make the best of it that we can. It's about something what I call cycling between the node and the network, being able to go really, really detailed, the psychology of your consumer, the psychology of your staff. And then in the same moment, go right the way back to the big picture. How is that manifesting in the big stage? And then back again, and then back again. So it's keeping this dialogue, this cycling between the micro and the macro. It's about celebrating mavericks, not kicking them out, or ostracizing them into the corner in some weird little hut in Switzerland. This is actually about bringing them in and making them the heroes, because these are the edges of your own organization who can provide you with some of the ideas and some of the guidance for the future. They're the prophets, if you like. It's about trusting peer leadership. Trusting people, when given the right tools and the right support, will do the right thing in any given situation with what they know and what their intuition and their insight says. And this is a really important area for me. It's also about, if you're going to get people to contribute to your business success, you're going to have to share back the rewards. You can't just take all the excitement and the ideas and the interest from social media, use it for your ends, and re-churn it out. And you see a lot of companies trying to use social media to shove adverts down them, rather than to understand this as a different way of living. It's a different way of doing business. And finally, it's about being mission motivated. People, given a chance, want to work in organizations that have a mission, a purpose, and values. And they will respond in kind if you have that very clearly. So ultimately, this is about moving from an understanding of humanity, where the workers, employees, consumers, suppliers, as cogs in the machine, the economic machine, to a holistic understanding of human nature, where we're all intelligent. We are all intelligent beings in the network. We are interconnected in a very profound way. What happens to me does have an impact in Malawi, and back again. And we are interdependent. And if you allow that to happen in the organization, you have what the scientists call self-organization, where this is proteins in a bacteria. They will organize themselves based upon what the environment is telling them right there and then. They will innovate mutations and adaptations that solve the environmental challenge without direction. And if we could allow this kind of thinking to permeate from organizations into culture, we have a sense of some civic innovation that could happen, civic renewal. And finally, when that happens, what you're essentially doing is you're liberating collective magic, and the jazz band is possibly the greatest example of this. Everyone's an expert in their own instrument. They come together voluntarily. They have a vision and a sense of what they're going to create for you, but in that moment, they're doing things because they feel it happening. And out of that emergence comes genius. And it has been a real privilege to share some of these ideas with you. So you can get this presentation on the top URL.
Well, I thought that was excellent, really.
So how can you take out the individuals? I think they're vital in the process of creating change.
There are still very powerful tools in the hierarchical toolbox, but it's a question of understanding that if you treat people as intelligent and interconnected, then that starts to shift fundamentally how you do business. And it also brings in some of the green and social issues, because as individuals, we care about all of those things.
I was really interested, particularly from Nick, but from the panel as a whole, on thoughts in organisational and cultural terms, how you can actually begin to make that progress towards. Because we've talked a lot about the end state that you aspire to get to, but actually some thoughts in practical terms as to how you can begin to change your business to get there.
The way you actually go about these things is different from the old days of case studies, replicate. It's mechanistic, it's linear. And the whole point of this is there are no absolute answers. The things are going to emerge. We need people from the charity world and the environmental world and policy and business all working together, using some of the design principles, using some different types of mindset. You can never regulate out every single eventuality. You can't regulate quick enough in a complex, changing world. The way you have to do things is the where I work in, which is moral compass and developing people's moral compass as ethical leaders. So they do the right thing because they know it's not just in the best interest of the company long term. So there is a company in 20 years because they've still got people buying stuff, but because it's actually the thing that they intuitively feel is the right thing to do. And this is not very popular in the West.